Welcome to Emotionally Healthy Legacy. My name is Elizabeth, and I am a mom of 3 boys. My goal here is to educate you intentional ways that you can become an emotionally healthy mom, ways that you can break destructive patterns that have been happening for years, and how you can leave an emotionally healthy legacy with your children. Hello, welcome back to Emotionally Healthy Legacy Mamas. In today's episode, we'll be talking about when do we give ourselves grace and what do we do when we end up messing up and we end up saying hurtful things or doing hurtful things that we regret later. How do we repair that relationship with our children or spouse? You could apply it to spouse or somebody else, but our focus here is on motherhood. So we all did experience COVID in 2020, and it's still lingering on in 2021. Things are starting getting back to normal, but it's still not really normal. 2020 was really hard. That springtime, that summer was slightly easier because, we could spend time outside, but boy, spring and fall were so tough because I live in Minnesota and the weather isn't that great. So we were stuck inside quite a bit with my children, and that was very, very straining. That was very emotionally draining. My husband worked long hours. It was just me and the kids. We were trying to figure out this distance learning. I'm grateful I only had one in school at that time, but it was still a lot to handle. It was very overwhelming, very hard. That is a season in life where you give yourself grace. You will find yourself reacting way more than you want to, or you normally even do, because you are so drained from kids being around you all the time. You're all stuck inside. You don't really get a break. It was really rough. Another season for me personally, but maybe some of you have experienced it too, was miscarriage. That was another season I had to give myself grace. Things were really, really rough for a couple months, adjusting afterwards, just because I was emotionally dealing with a lot and my emotional energy was going to my grief. I couldn't give as much emotional energy to my children, and all their problems to my brain seemed so minor and so insignificant, even though to them in their world, it's important things. But compared to what I was dealing with, it seemed insignificant, and I found myself reacting a lot more and being snappy and frustrated and even angry a lot more than I normally would. If you ever went through a season in your marriage where there is some extra strain, and to be honest, I feel like if we're all honest, we all have been through a season like that in our marriage at one point or another. I remember I heard of a book, it's called 4 Seasons of Marriage or something, and it talks about winter, spring, summer, and fall, and there are hard seasons, and during that time, that also that takes your mental and emotional energy, all the conflict or the tension that's between you and your spouse, the disagreements, that takes energy out of you. Sometimes it almost feels like it takes even physical energy, but it takes your emotional and mental energy. So when it comes to your children, you don't have as much to give. Even if you try to replenish yourself, which you should be trying to, you might still find yourself struggling to give to your children the best you can because so much energy is being taken away. And we have a limited amount of energy per day. We just do. Because we're humans and we're not gods. God has, unlimited energy. We will find ourselves reaching our limit, and it could be through the day or whenever, and we find ourselves more frustrated and irritated and snappy, and we react instead of respond. Another season, for example, could be illness or sickness or physical pain. I know for me, for sure, I notice definitely when I am not feeling well physically, I find myself reacting way more than I normally would when I feel good. And right now, I'm in a season of third trimester in my pregnancy. And I've had this with all of my boys all of my pregnancies. In my second trimester, I would start having low iron. So I would experience anemia, and that I feel literally exhausted at the end of the day. I feel out of breath. I feel lightheaded. Sometimes mornings are really rough. It's just I don't have the energy that I normally would have. And I literally feel so exhausted that I cannot give anymore. I would even call my husband and be like, hey, can you please come from work earlier today? It's just really, really hard. I'm physically really struggling. I feel like faint. I can barely stand. I need your help. And he would come and he would take over and he would clean up the kitchen afterwards and he would help put the kids to bed. The problem was that when I physically don't feel good, if something is hurting, like a headache or back pain or anything, your brain is focused on what you're dealing with. So this part is just science. You want it or not, your brain will be focused on your issue, because when you're experiencing any sort of discomfort or pain, it's kind of a threat for your brain, and it feels unsafe. And so it will start shifting the focus on what you're dealing with and struggling with. And you will also find yourself in those moments, it's really, really hard to be patient with your kids. It's really, really hard to respond and stay calm because of what you're dealing with. I definitely have experienced that in myself often, many times. And I am blessed thus far in my life not to have much of physical pain, just in general. I'm in my early 30s, and I'm so thankful to God that I just haven't experienced a lot of physical pain in my life. But I also know, like, I'll have a C-section with this baby, a scheduled C-section. I also know that I will experience physical pain, and I know that that is a time I need to give myself some extra grace. I will not be myself. I will struggle, and I will need some extra help. And the thing is, like, okay, so what do we do? So here are just a few examples. I'm sure there's lots of other things that you might be dealing with life. There are things that just happen out of our control. We get in a car accident, or we lost a loved one, or just we're going through divorce, anything extra strainful that just happens to us, almost kind of like out of our control, creates extra stress for us. And those are seasons to give yourself extra grace. So what do we do when we are in that season? This is how I deal with it. Maybe this will be helpful for you, maybe not. I think we need to own it, and tell our children we're having a hard time or a hard moment. When I was going through miscarriage, my kids would see me cry. I wouldn't suppress my emotions, and they would ask, and I'd say, Mommy's having a hard time. Mommy's really sad because the baby went to be with Jesus. And I would, if it's appropriate, you can vaguely tell your kids what's going on. If not, you can just say, Mommy's just really having a hard time. Mom's having a hard moment. My back hurts. I'm having a headache. And then what we also do, I do with my kids, I ask them for help, because some of my kids my middle one is 6, my older one is 9. So there are things that they can do that can be helpful for me. They can make their own food. They can pour cereal. My oldest can load a dishwasher. They can unload the dishwasher. They can clean up the kitchen and sweep the floors. There are things that they can do that are easy and simple for them. So I do ask them for help. They can get ready for bed without, me helping them. The little one needs help. So I ask my kids for help. In moments that I'm struggling, I acknowledge it, I own it, and I ask for help. So, what do you do when you do mess up, though? Like, if this is what's happening, you're under stress, things are tense, you're dealing with a lot that is out of your control, and then you end up being snappy at your kids. You end up raising your voice. You yelled. You maybe even screamed. You maybe even physically reacted in a way you feel regretful about later on. What do you do then? Well, one of the things that I want to mention to you that in the moment when that happens, oftentimes we can only see our perspective and our brain tries to justify that what we did was okay. So, for example, if your child accidentally, let's say they climbed the counter. You've told them many times not to. They still climbed the counter. And when they were getting off, they accidentally, tipped the bowl, fell on the floor. It broke. The soup spilled, whatever. I had an incident like that with my son like a week after I had the miscarriage. And I screamed at him. I yelled and I screamed at him. I'm like, seriously, what did you do? I've told you so many times not to climb the counter. And I remember being so frustrated and so angry in that moment. I just started to break down and cry. It seemed like such a minor thing, but I was so emotionally overloaded that I just couldn't handle it well in that moment. And I totally lost it. And like in that moment, all I could see was my perspective, that he did not listen to me. He climbed the counter. It's his fault that he broke the bowl. Now I have to clean it up because there's broken glass pieces. Obviously, a 3-year-old can't clean it up. I have to do it. And I was in my brain, I was justifying that I screamed at him. I'm like, he deserved it. He deserved me screaming at him for what he did. That's the problem. When we are in the moment, when we are experiencing a big feeling and emotion, all we can see is our perspective. We cannot see our child's perspective, where they were coming from at that time. All we could see our own. So I mean, in that moment, I had my kids leave the kitchen. I sent them to their rooms. And as I sat on the floor, I cried for a bit. And then I cleaned it all up. And later on, when I cooled off and I was able to regulate myself with some breathing, I went upstairs and I had to take ownership for what I did. I had to take ownership and apologize and tell my child that what I did was hurtful and I will try to do better next time. So when we are regulated, when we're able to calm down and our thinking brain is able to turn back on again, because when we're emotional, remember, we are either an emotional or survival part of the brain. Probably in that moment with me, I was survival part of the brain because I was screaming. Yeah. I don't know if I definitely wanted to hurt my kid. That was for sure. I don't remember what I did. I don't think I did, but I definitely wanted to. But that's our survival part of the brain. When I was able to calm down, my thinking brain turned back on. I was able to take ownership and see a different perspective. Like, okay, he was just trying to get his water. That's why he climbed the counter. He wasn't trying to be naughty or purposely disobedient. He was just thirsty and like he forgot not to climb the counter. And so he was just reaching for his water instead of asking for it. And it's not like he purposely tipped the plate over or the bowl. He did not do that because he doesn't want to get his mom angry and frustrated. So I was able to kind of see things a little bit from a different perspective. I was also able to see that how I reacted was probably really scary for my son. And it was because nowadays, I don't yell and scream much at all because of all these things I have learned and implemented. Of course, I still have my rough moments, but they're so rare that when they do happen, it takes my kids it takes them aback and they just kind of almost freeze. And my little one gets so sensitive, he'll like run upstairs and hide under the bed or something because it's just, he doesn't get to experience it that often. So then I need to go find him and talk to him. So I did go upstairs and talk to my little one. And I said, Philip, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you. That must have been really, really scary. Mommy got really, really angry that you accidentally broke the bowl. You probably didn't mean to do that, right? He's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, I'm so sorry for yelling at you. Next time, mommy's going to try to take some deep breaths and stay calm when something like that happens. And so I took ownership for what I did. I also validated his perspective that it was probably scary for him seeing mom super angry. And then I apologized for it and I told him what I will do better next time, kind of making a plan. Or I had another incident with my son that just literally happened yesterday, actually. So my same boy, he's almost 4 now, he would go to the DVD case and he would take a random CD out and he start throwing it around the house because he likes the way it flies. And he took a CD out a few weeks ago and it was like an old, VeggieTales one, which I didn't care for because, we have VeggieTales on Netflix and, on the account. So I'm like, whatever, he can just play with it. Well, I didn't think ahead that he might do this again, which he did yesterday. Without me noticing, he grabbed another CD and then I see him throwing it around the house and it's flying. And I got really triggered by that. I'm like, what the heck? Some of those CDs, I know that they're like, some of them were Christian movies and I paid like $15 or $20 for a CD and he's just literally throwing it around. Thank goodness that one was just like one from Lightning McQueen and someone gave it to us for free. So that one didn't really matter. But before I realized it was that CD, I got really, really triggered. I got the CD. He threw it. I got it. I picked it up. I came up to him and I raised my voice at him and I said, Philip, what are you doing? You know that is not okay. And I took the CD and I bopped it on his forehead and it cracked. And that was like a negative reaction from me. In the moment, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. He got freaked out because remember, he's sensitive. So he ran upstairs and he hid under the bed. And he started to kind of cry because to him that was scary, my reaction. And I'm like, he ran upstairs and I'm like, wait, hold on. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? I had to cool off myself a little bit and then able to see the perspective. I'm like, okay, this morning I did not have any alone time. I've been kind of constantly doing stuff all day long. I was triggered because I am sensitive when I spend money and when things are wasted. So I was triggered by that. I did not, respond in a good way. So what do I need to do now? I need to go upstairs and repair. I went upstairs, kind of similar situation. I said, hey, Philip, I'm so, I know mommy yelled at you and I know that was really scary for you. I just want to say I'm so sorry for doing that. Next time I will do this and this and this. Because In the moment, I could not see it from his perspective. I could not see that he was just having fun. And he was not doing it to be naughty. He was just having a great time, because last time I didn't say anything about him playing with a CD and flying it, in the kitchen and in the hallway. And so it was almost kind of like that is something I didn't foresee ahead of time. What about if you find yourself on a regular basis at a certain time in the day that you are reacting instead of responding? And you see that it's a pattern that keeps repeating over and over again. So what do you do then? I think, from my perspective, I think that is a time where you need to kind of step back and analyze what is not working in my day and what do I need to do a little bit differently. If it's dinner time, that's typically a tense time for me. Is there something I can do differently? Right now it's nicer outside. I can send my kids outside and they play outside while I make dinner. In the wintertime, I honestly just turned on cartoons. I couldn't deal with the chaos and the noise. I was really sensitive to that. By the end of the day, I was tired and I'm making dinner. I do it myself. I probably should start getting my kids involved, but sometimes I just don't have the energy to deal with them trying to help me because they're not actually super helpful. At that time, my oldest can be, but the other two are not. So we need to kind of look at the time of the day. What's the strain, and what can I do differently to support myself and help myself not feel as frustrated and overwhelmed? If it's your morning, maybe you need to do something the night before differently. Or simplify it, or you need to get up a little bit earlier before your kids so you can get some of that quiet and stillness. If it is dinner time, is there things that you can do ahead of time to prep? Is it something you can ask your spouse and meal prep for the week and be like, hey, I need you to cut up these and these and these vegetables because I'll be using them for the next few days making meals, and could you please cut them up while you watch Netflix or something like that? My husband doesn't seem to mind doing that. Something that you can do proactively to help yourself and support yourself in those stress moments so it's not as stressful, so it's not as overwhelming. But there will definitely be times where we still mess up, where we do mess up, where we fail and we react instead of respond, and we're all humans, and that is okay. You need to look back and analyze, why did it happen and what can you do differently next time? And also take ownership for it. That's the thing. That's the repair part of the relationship. When we end up yelling or screaming or saying hurtful words or physically hurting our kids when we're so angry, that puts distress in our relationship. That pulls us apart from one another. It's not hopeful in the long run. And if we just ignore what happened, we are not serving the relationship. We're also not modeling to our kids what we want them to do when they do things like that. That's why I think it's so important for us to go back to our children, to own up what we did, see it from their perspective, and maybe acknowledge that it was scary for them when mom yelled, when mom screamed, or it was hurtful for them. You apologize for doing that. If you want to, you can share, mommy's not feeling well right now. She's having a hard time. It's not an excuse, but it's also for your child to kind of see that something is going on, that there is an underlying reason why you reacted in such way. And also say, okay, next time, mommy's going to try to take some deep breaths when this happens. Next time, mommy's going to try to take a break when this happens. Next time, mommy's going to do this because I don't want to yell at you. And I know that is hurtful and I'm sorry. just owning and apologizing it, because that's what we want our kids to do. We want them to own up what they did and apologize for it and see another person's perspective. And how are they going to learn that if we don't model it to them? We want them to do this with us and with their siblings and their future spouses. So let's start with modeling to them what we want them to do, because that is something that is in our control. And even if they don't do that right now, those lessons are still getting sunk in, and they are going deep in their mind, and they will remember that later on down the road in their life. All right, ladies, this is what I had for you today. So when we do mess up, we can look at what are we dealing with in that season. Are there things happening out of our control that are putting extra strain on us? And if there are, you give yourself grace in that season. Now, that's not a reason for you or an excuse to do whatever you want and keep on screaming and yelling and saying hurtful things, but it's also for you to see that, hey, I'm dealing with a lot right now. And if my best friend was dealing with this amount of strain, I would be very understanding if she would, be reacting instead of responding. Number 2 is when we do mess up, we need to reconcile and we need to restore. With our children, we need to repair that relationship. And we can't do that unless we're able to calm down first, because then it's not authentic. When we calm down first, then our brain is able to see another person's perspective. Then we can see what we did that was hurtful or wrong and sinful. And then we can go back to our children and own it and say, hey, mommy did this. That must have felt blank for you. I'm very sorry for doing that. That was really hurtful. Next time I will try to do this. And you kind of make a plan. And, you also model that for your kids, because that's what we want them to do later on. So that is it for today. I hope you got something helpful out of here. If this has been helpful for you, I really would love for you to share this with another mom that you think will benefit from this episode. And also, if you could go and leave a review on iTunes, if you listen on iTunes, and just give me a rating and leave a review, that would be so helpful for me. Thank you very much, ladies. You have a wonderful day. If you're a mom that struggles with handling her challenging emotions in a healthy way, listen up. I got a tool for you. If you go in the show notes of this podcast, you will see a link where you can sign up for a 5-day free mini course. And in that mini course, you get to learn actual practical things that you can do in the moment and outside of the moment to be more patient and calm, so you're not as overwhelmed, so you're not as stressed, and actual ways to learn to de-stress yourself and calm your nervous system down. How often do we hear that we shouldn't react, we should respond? And the problem is, well, how? In the moment, I don't know how, because I'm so overwhelmed and so triggered. In this mini course, you get to learn the how. I am so excited that I have these skills that I can share with you. So go in the show notes, click on the link, enter your email, and then you can start the 5-day free mini course.